This is a talk that I did recently, just talking about like what the newest things are in the hobby and, you know, what's kind of like the new greatest thing that's coming up. And so I started off with the idea of I wanted to be the biggest breeder of shrimp in the United States. I was like, if I have the tanks, there's no turning back. That's where we started. And it didn't go how I planned, but I'll tell you why. So we initially started off with breeding shrimp. I was constantly sold out. So we started importing. I won't bore you with all these details, but we import a lot of shrimp. We have a ton of tanks. We might have, I think we have like 600, 700 tanks, maybe 1,000. I don't know. It's a lot. And we have like ponds. We have 2 huge warehouses set up. So we do a lot. And so the reason we don't breed shrimp anymore is because we literally just, there's no way that we could. Like the amount of money that you'd have to spend to have the infrastructure to breed enough shrimp at the capacity or at the supply that you would need to fuel the United States market. It's just like, it's an astronomical amount of capital. So we tried it. We failed in a sense. And basically what I realized is like, there's all these people out there selling shrimp wrong, in my opinion. And I'll get to this later on in the talk. Like they sell stuff with parasites. They don't quarantine it, all this stuff. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to import, but I'm going to do it in a new way. So like our big thing was 30-day quarantine, which I'll talk about. 100% live arrival guarantee. If there's anything wrong with the shrimp, we'll replace them. And so like, I really wanted to raise the standard. And that's where we started saying like our tagline now is setting the standard. And so that's kind of how we got to where we are. And now we import a lot, we quarantine, we do all the things. And that's kind of how we've gotten to where we are now. One of my favorite things right up here in the center, I love talking about her. That's Bonnie. Bonnie is a person who's been in the hobby for 50 years. At this point, 55, 56 years. She was in a domestic abusive relationship. And her escape was her fish room. It was down in her basement with her laundry machine. She'd go down there and that was her way to get away from her husband. And like just meeting people like that really makes me like fired up about this hobby, and it shows like the importance of it. And so Bonnie was just an amazing person that I got to meet. And like, it's crazy when we did this slide, it has over 1 million views. So like just an awesome, awesome lady. And I'm really blessed to be where I am. So YouTube has been really instrumental in the success of Flip Aquatics. And I think the main reason why is because it's just the transparency aspect. Everyone gets a look into my mistakes, where I've been, what I've done, and then they can learn from that. They can see like, you know, we're not hiding anything. Like we share our success stories, our failures, what we did wrong, what we did right. And so YouTube's been a really huge part. And so like, what's new in the hobby and what's going on? So first of all, we got snails. Here's a little peek at our snail system. It's actually a mirrored image. So like this side isn't actually there. It's just that side. And so we got a really cool system set up. We got like the automatic water changes. We got overflows in the back. We got sumps. We got the heaters. And so it's one of my favorite systems. The most popular rare snail right now, if you can get them, they're amazing. They're called a blueberry snail. They're a live berry. They're similar to like rabbit snails. If you've ever seen a rabbit snail, they have the shell of a rabbit snail, but in the form of a nearite snail body. So like, they're just super cool. They got like the real checkered colors, and they have like 1-2 babies a month, and they come out and they're full grown. Like they don't lay eggs, like they're actual live bears. So if you can get your hands on some of those, I believe we have some for sale. Don't quote me on that, but if you want to look, flipaquatics.com. Again, another thing I like to say, me being here in no way is my goal to convert anyone to be a customer. I think the most important thing that you could do is find somebody local to you that's breeding shrimp, breeding snails, breeding fish. Talk to them, get their water quality, know exactly what they're doing. You can go visit them. And I think that's what really grows this hobby. I think what I'm passionate about is no, maybe not. But my big thing is like, I want to supply the people that don't have the access, right? Like people that live in the middle of nowhere that don't have access to a pet store. That's where those are the people I want to reach. Not saying I don't want to reach people like you. I just want you to know, like, my heart isn't for me to stand up here and brag on Flip Aquatics and get you to buy from us. Like, I genuinely want to help you and give you tips to succeed. But like, if you're looking for something, we have it. We're an option. Like, feel free to use us, reach out to us. We're an open book. Next thing, these have always been really cool in the hobby. They're called red racer nearite snails. The thing that makes them the red racer is they have the stripe that has like a red triangle or line, and then the black mixed into it. And so these guys are just super pretty. They come from the Philippines, and we get these in regularly. They're good algae eater. They They may lay eggs in your tank. They won't breed. So if you don't want breeding, they're a great one to have. Next up is mystery snails. I love mystery snails because they're so easy. If you don't want them to breed, you just remove the eggs. If you want them to breed, they're pretty easy to hatch the eggs. They won't overpopulate. And so these guys are really, really great. They're also good for shrimp. They're just a great, I would say they have a symbiotic relationship. Snails will eat waste that shrimp aren't eating, and then shrimp will actually eat their poop. And it's just a good relationship. And I'll talk more about that as we go on. Next up, we got some crabs and crayfish. Thai microcrabs, great one. They're like little spiders. So if you don't like spiders, you probably wouldn't like these guys. But to give you a comparison for size, they're about the size of the tip of an eraser of a pencil. They're pretty small. Now, their legs spread out farther than that. People do say they breed in captivity. I personally have never been able to do it. I haven't actually tried, but they are really pretty. And they're just a super unique one. They're super popular this time of the year because of Halloween. The only problem with them is they're really hard to get this time of the year because they're out of season. Next up, we got some pom-pom crabs. There is a freshwater pom-pom crab and a saltwater pom-pom crab. So this is the freshwater. They're fully aquatic. They don't need to get above water. Next up, some crayfish. There's a lot of these ones. There's most of them. There's 3 types that are mostly blue / a blackish color. I'm colorblind, so I'm doing my best. So don't quote me on these either. But they're mostly a bluish shade, maybe a gray. And there's 3 different types like that. Blue Brazos is a really popular one. There's also the blue mini. And then the most popular one is the CPO. CPO, and it's the orange Mexican crayfish. And those guys have been really popular lately. A lot of people get into them. They are mostly fish safe, so they really won't mess with your fish, and they're big enough that most of the fish won't mess with them. So they're a good in between shrimp and them. Shrimp and fish. If you want to keep more fish, those are a great option. Next up, just talking about some Caridina shrimp. This is our Caridina rack. We have about 96 different tanks. The most popular one is the crystal red. It's just been in the hobby for forever. It's got really good colors, white, red. People love it. It's fairly easy to keep as far as Caridina go. But Caridina shrimp do need a lower pH, softer water. They are actually easier to keep than Neocaridina if you have the initial setup for them. And so I believe as we go through the talk, we'll talk more about the care of them. But they are an easy type. The next one, and these guys are super popular. They're a tangerine tiger. The reason they're so popular is because they're the easiest shrimp to mix to create new crosses. So a lot of people use them to create galaxy pintos, red fancy tigers, black fancy tigers. Most of the pintos started from a version of the tangerine tiger. So mixing them with crystal shrimp and then with Taiwan bees, so on and so forth. And so that's why they're so popular. And then I just love these guys. These are very similar to the crystal red, but they're a mix of the tangerine tiger with crystal red. You breed them out and you get really cool patterns. So I just love the difference of patterns, and that's what makes it exciting. So when they're breeding, you never know what you're going to get. And that to me is fun. Next up, we got Neocaridina. And just to get, again, these are just basic parameters, and I will get to these, but a typical Neocaridina parameter setup would just be most of the time you can use tap water dechlorinated. We use matin filters as our filtration, which matin filter is the whole wall of an aquarium is covered by sponge, and then you use air to kind of circulate the water from one side of the sponge to the other, and then you have a whole wall of filtration. Pool filter sand or any inert substrate. If you guys don't know what inert means, it's basically it has no buffering capacity. It's not going to change the parameters in the water. And so any inert substrate would work. We just use pool filter sand because it's pretty cheap. You can get it from most of your pool and spa dealers. We use RO water, or we actually don't. We use tap water because our tap water is really good. So full transparency, but RODI water or distilled water is the easiest thing to ensure that you have success. And then we have our own for remineralizer. It's called Shrimple. It's GH and KH, and there's a certain ratio. You 2 to 1, so 2 GH for each 1 KH. And then just a couple things you can put in the tank, like Malaysian driftwood, Java moss, any almond leaves, things like that. We'll make sure that you have more success. This is our room that we keep the Neocaridina in. If you guys have never seen them, they're IBC toads. We cut them down, and then we have about I think like 200 gallons, 180 gallons of water in each one. And then we keep about anywhere from 800, maybe 600 on the low end, up to about 2,000 on the high end in each one. And so like the way our quarantine process works is we'll import like 10 different totes. What are you laughing about over there? We'll import 10 different these totes, and then we'll just cycle through them one at a time. And so we never sell before 30 days, and I'll talk about that later. But there's a lot of times that, you know, we'll have shrimp for like 90 days, 120 days, things like that. Orange Sunkiss, this time of the year, we call it, like a lot of people call them orange pumpkins because it's, you know, that time of the year, Halloween season. These guys are always super popular. They're super easy to keep. All these are about the same difficulty. And so Blue Dreams are one of my personal favorites. I like blue shrimp. And these guys just are absolutely stunning. The thing with blue shrimp is there's always a lot of variation, like Blue Dream, Fantasy Blue, Blue Velvet, Blue Pearl. They're not all interchangeable, but there are a lot of different ones. What I would recommend is pick one supplier, buy from that supplier, and then never mix shrimp in with those shrimp. Otherwise, you might start getting brown, things like that. And it all comes down to genetics. They all look very similar. Next up is just the good old cherry shrimp. Cherry shrimp have always been popular. People love the red coloration. It contrasts really well with plants. And so these guys are very cheap, very easy to get. And so always a great addition. And then I always like talking about this grading cherry shrimp. So a lot of people think Sakura shrimp are different than cherry shrimp. Fire red shrimp are different than cherry shrimp. Painted fire reds are a different line. Really, it's all the same shrimp. It's all about how thick their color is, how nice their color is. And so like if you get a painted fire red shrimp, it's solid red. You can't see through it. Like it's just completely red. Now, a fire red has a little bit of patching, but most of the shell is red. And then you get to the Sakura, and it's like, it almost looks like the tissue is red, not the shell. And then cherry shrimp is just like, you know, it's kind of clear, does have some red in it. And so just so you guys know that it's a grading scale, not different types of shrimp. So the first thing I like to talk about is what to consider when buying the shrimp. So the first thing, imported versus homebred. What's the difference? Imported shrimp, generally, they're bigger, they're cheaper, they're much quicker to breed. The only thing is you have like the risk of parasites, risk of bacterial infections, risk of disease. So like there's a lot more variation there, and it's a lot riskier. But you know, if you go through somebody very trusted, like we're very diligent about quarantining them, guarantee that they don't have those diseases, parasites. Now, that doesn't mean it can't happen. It just means that, you know, we do our best to make sure it doesn't happen. Now, homebred, if you can find a source of homebred, you know, one of the bad things is they're hard to find. But when you do find, if you have a good source, they're usually very healthy. They're usually much smaller, so it takes a lot longer to get them to the age that they're going to breed. So most of us are not in a hurry. We want to do it right now. And so a lot of people want to get, you know, buried shrimp and ones that are ready to go. But homebred, it is risky for the simple fact that people will say, I'll get to you in 1 second. People will say like, hey, these are homebred, but really they're not. They're imported. And so like having a trusted source is important. I would say like 3 to 6 months is when they sell homebred is what I would guess. And then our normal shrimp are probably like a general imported shrimp is going to be about 9 months to a year because they want them to be a big size. And then when you get into like the painted fire reds, those ones could even be older because they want them to mature to get the really good color. And so as far as how long shrimp live, usually if you keep them in good conditions, 3 to 5 years. Most people say they live about 2 years. But that's like, you know, if you don't have the right temperature, if the temperature is too high, they'll kind of deplete quicker. And so if you keep the temperature around like 68 to 72, they tend to live 3 to 5 years. Multiple sources. This is one thing that I preach is like the risk with introducing shrimp from multiple sources is you don't know the genetics. So there's that risk, and you might breed them and get completely different colored shrimp. And like, I don't like doing that. So like, if I ever wanted to like introduce new genetics to a colony, what I would do is I would set up a brand new tank and I would move like 10 shrimp from my existing colony and 10 shrimp from a new source, mix those together, let them breed one time. And then depending on how those babies look, then I would feel comfortable condensing my tanks into one and having one colony. But it's always the least risky thing to set them up in a new tank. And the other thing is like, sometimes animals just have different bacteria, right? So like Pilgrim and Indians is like the easiest thing. Like pilgrims might have had like a common cold, that really wasn't bad for them. Like every year they just get the same cold, but like maybe the Indians never had a cold, and then they get together and all of a sudden the cold wipes out all the Indians. And it's just like, or vice versa, the Indians had a disease or a or like not a parasite. They had a disease or a bacteria that killed all the pilgrims. And like, it doesn't mean that one was healthy and the other one wasn't. It just means that our immune system is used to certain things. And if we get introduced to something new, it could have a lot more effects. Like, you know, I mean, not to like get into politics, but like COVID right now, most people that get it, it's just like, it's, you know, it's just like I got a cough and like maybe I can't smell, but it's not nearly what it was 3 years ago. And it's just because we build up, you know, somewhat of an immunity to it. And so like when you get new shrimp and like, it's just always the risk of like introducing something that they have that could hurt your current population. So it's always better, you know, to set up a new tank. Now, 30-day quarantine, this is something we do. And this is not something that I'm just like, hey, let's start a 30-day quarantine. Like that sounds nice. It's shrimp molt in a 30-day cycle. So most shrimp, adult shrimp, will molt every 30 days. When you import shrimp, they molt in the bag. Most of the time, it's premature. So like the big thing is making sure those shrimp molt again 30 days later. And if they do, if you can get them to molt again healthy in 30 days, then you know that shrimp is good. It's going to be successful. If it doesn't molt successfully, then you know, okay, like that wasn't something that was ever going to be successful for anyone else. So our big thing is holding them for that first 30 days to ensure that they molt successfully and do well. So if you ever wanted to buy from just a random person online, always reach out to them and be like, oh, like, hey, I see you have these available. You know, when did you get these in? And they'll tell you like, oh, we got them, you know, last week, or they just came in this week or something like that. Or if they don't have them in stock, you could say like, oh, how soon could I get them? They're like, oh, we have an order coming in Monday. You can pick them up on Tuesday. Whenever you hear that, that is somebody that doesn't understand shrimp molting processes, how important it is to give stability. And I probably wouldn't buy from them. Because even me, like, I feel like maybe I'm an expert when it comes to shrimp. I feel like I know a lot more than the average person. And I don't think I'm like, there's been multiple times that I bought shrimp that have gone from A, B, C, D, and then to me, and they all come alive, but they all die within 30 days because like there was just zero chance of that shrimp being successful. And so it's always good to hold or to get from someone that, you know, takes the time to stabilize them, make sure they're healthy. And then it gives them time to like treat parasites, treat any bacterial issues that they might have. And so in my opinion, 30-day quarantine for imported shrimp is a non-negotiable. I just wouldn't ever buy from someone that wasn't doing it. And then there's a couple of things like shipping's stressful. No matter how you look at it, like if a bunch of us got in a car and we drove all the way to, let me think of what's far away, California, and we weren't allowed to stop, we were only able to like drink water, we weren't allowed to get out to go to the bathroom. Like, I mean, you can imagine how bad that trip would be after like 3 days in the car. And like, you know, no sleep. Like, it's just like, it wouldn't be good. We'd all get there. We probably wouldn't be healthy. And so like shipping is not a stressless process. So like, there's a lot of things that you can do to kind of limit the stress. So like breather bags, for example. The nice thing about breather bags is when it's jumbling around in the box, the animal inside really isn't moving because there's no air. There's nowhere for it to go. So like staying pretty stagnant in the middle of the water. Like it's not like, even if they drop the box, like it really doesn't move much. Like it's not really stressful on them. And then like, it's all about like the putting nets in the bag. Have you ever get shrimp that don't have something for them to hang on in the bag? Like those shrimp are not going to do well. And so like, you know, having good insulation, really taking the precautions. Like one thing we do is we fast all of our animals on Saturday and Sunday. We fast them. That way on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, they're either just at the tail end of their pooping cycle, or they won't start pooping until like later on in the week. That way they're not polluting the bag on the way there because ammonia can build up in the bag. Like there's just a lot that could happen. And so there's a lot of precautions you should take to really make sure it's successful when ordering shrimp or fish or anything online. So bag temperature is a big one, especially for shrimp. For fish, it's much easier. Like you can float it for 30 minutes. They're good to go. Like most fish can tolerate that. They don't want to be floating for very long. They get stressed out. It's much better just to put them in their tank and they can adjust. Shrimp, they don't want to have sudden jumps in temperature. The faster the temperature changes, they molt, and now they're that much less likely to be successful for you. So because we ship in breather bags, you can literally set that bag on your table, let it acclimate to the room temperature over 24 hours. Like there's zero rush to get that in the tank. We've had bags of shrimp be in the mail for 30 days. And now granted, they don't all come back alive, but like 6 out of 10 will come back alive. And like they ate their brethren that died, and that's how they sustain themselves. But like there's zero rush to get them out of the bag quickly. And so like, you know, really taking your time, making sure the temperature isn't changing crazy. Drip acclimating them is a good option just to like slowly change the temperature. You breather bags, you don't want to float them for more than 30 minutes, just so you guys know. If you do want to float them for longer than that, what I always recommend is getting like a Tupperware container, putting them in the Tupperware container in the breather bag, and then you can float that Tupperware container in your tank. Just, you know, make sure it isn't going to tip over. You can use like a little clip on the side of your tank to hold it in place. And then your tank water will slowly adjust the Tupperware to the temperature of the tank, and then it will adjust the bag to the temperature of the tank. So there's a lot of ways that you can get around doing it. If you ever have questions, you can reach out to us, flipaquatics.com. We have like a contact us form. You can reach out and be like, hey, I heard this thing in this talk, but I don't remember what he said. And like my team has all this information. They can walk you through the process, or they can come grab me and like I can respond to the email, and I'd be more than happy to help you guys out. So ammonia is something that fish, shrimp just naturally produce. It's toxic. And so basically what do you do for it? It's coming from the poop. It's coming from any dead ones. It's coming from just them naturally breathing in the water. And so when you get a bag of fish, shrimp, there's a chance that it has ammonia. And so what we do, as soon as we open the bag, we dose a little bit of ACCR. It's a mild dechlorinator, and it will neutralize the ammonia so that it's not going to kill them. So that's always something that I highly recommend if you're going to take time drip acclimating. You don't want to just cut open a bag that had a bunch of deaths in there, put it in a bucket, start drip acclimating it. Most likely everything's going to die from ammonia poisoning. It's going to cause more stress. So using something like ACCR is good. The most popular dechlor out there is probably Seachem, right? A lot of people know what Seachem Prime is. It's so concentrated. So the problem with it is because it's so concentrated, it will deplete the oxygen content in the water and actually suffocate the animal. So if you're going to use something that is like Seachem Prime, like literally 1 drop, 2 drops. Like you want to do like such a small amount. But if you want to use what we use ACCR by Fritz. Shrimp Prep by Brightwell is also a good option that we have used. Drip acclimation, I talked about that a couple times. You know, what I use is the hang on the side like breeder boxes. Those are the best thing you can use because you'll never overflow it. Like you literally put them in this hang on the side breeder box. You put the shrimp in there, and then you just set that thing to like 1 drop per second, 1 drop every 3 seconds. If you want to go a little quicker, 2 drops. And then you just do it over a long period of time, like over 2 hours. And then eventually when the water level gets close to it's getting ready to overflow in the tank, then you can take the shrimp out, add them to your tank. I always like to dilute their water at least 50% tank water, 50% their water. And then that's how you know you're good to go. Drip acclimation is just a really slow process. Bacterial infections is also something you can experience when getting new shrimp. You see all these ones in the catch cup. They're all mono shrimp, and they have a very milky color. So like their bodies aren't translucent at all. And that's how you know, like, hey, that is a huge sign in a live shrimp of a bacterial infection. So like obviously those ones, they die, you know, they change colors anyway. They probably have some bacteria form in there. But like live shrimp, you see that milky color, that's how you know it's a bacterial. Or if all of a sudden you start having issues, like you're doing everything right and you're having deaths, most of the time if you're having unexplained deaths, it's a bacterial problem. And so you want to find the root cause of that. If you had just got your shrimp, it makes sense. Like maybe you had a type of bacteria they weren't used to, being in the bag for 3 days through the mail, and them living in their poop water, like that can cause bacterial infections. And so knowing, you know, that there are bacterial infections out there is really important. And then the treatment of them is a product that is called Maricin. We use Maricin and Maricin 2. You don't have to do that. I would say 99% of the time, Maricin, just a regular one, will kill bacterial infections. What we do is well, first of all, don't dose it like it says on the back of the box. Half dose for shrimp. If you dose full, you'll probably be okay, but I would highly recommend not doing it. So half dose. Day 1, you treat. Day 2, you don't treat, but like it's good to add some ACCR in there or some type of dechlorinator just to neutralize the ammonia. Day 3, treat. Day 4, again, some ACCR, something to neutralize that ammonia. And then day 5, we do a big water change, as big as you feel comfortable doing without changing the water parameters too much. And then you're going to have to restart the cycle in your tank. That's the only thing is Maricin kills bacteria, good bacteria and bad bacteria. So like the nitrifying bacteria that lives in your filter, it will kill it. So you do have to recycle your tank. And I talk about it later in the talk of like what we use to recycle it. Like we use a certain type of bottled bacteria that I think is really good. But this is definitely something that is really important. A lot of people don't know it. And then all of a sudden they'll start having issues. So jumping into water parameters is really important. And we can talk about the Caridina water parameters and the Neocaridina water parameters. But the first thing is like, not all shrimp are created equal. Like not all shrimp, use the same water parameters and want the same water parameters. Like the main types of shrimp are tigers, crystals, Taiwan bees, and then Neocaridina. Neocaridina are like, they're the most popular because like most people go to like a fish club auction, buy 10 of them and throw them in their tank. Like there's zero prep time that goes into it. Caridina, for the most part, have a bad rep because people do the same thing and then they die. And they're like, oh, they're hard to take care of. And like, no, they're actually not hard. Like I said in the beginning of the talk, they're actually really easy. You just have to have the right setup for them. But the most important thing that I can give you today is wherever you buy your shrimp from, that's who you should get advice from. So like, I'm going to give you a lot of general tips and tricks here to tell you like, hey, this is something to watch for. This is something to be cautious of. But like when you actually go to buy the shrimp, if you take all my information and you're like, I'm going to do exactly what Rob does, and then you go buy from like some random place, there's a chance that those shrimp are going to die. And it's not necessarily that those were bad shrimp. It's just that how those shrimp were kept might have been completely different than how we keep our shrimp. So what we found is the best way to keep shrimp from importing them from Taiwan, Indonesia, places like that. But if somebody's breeding them in the United States and has completely different water parameters, that's what those shrimp are used for, and they might not do good in the water parameters that I'll give you. So always important to know that. So deciding what you want to keep and where you want to get it from is definitely step one. Now, I can preach this until I'm red in the face. Shrimp-specific soil is not for all shrimp. So there's shrimp that like soft water, and that's most of the time, shrimp-specific soil is active substrate. And basically what that means is it's going to actively lower your pH. It's going to absorb KH out of your water, which is carbonate hardness. It's going to lower your pH. It's going to bring it down. It's going to make your water soft. And so like if you're getting Neocaridina shrimp, you never want active substrate. You want an inert substrate like pool filter sand, kind of like we talked about before. So just knowing that, hey, when you're picking your substrate, make sure you know whether it's an inert substrate or an active substrate, because it's very important based on the type of shrimp you want to keep. Tap water and well water, I'll just go quickly on this one. Basically, like there's a lot of variations when you're using tap water and well water. Real quick story. We've had the best tap water in the whole world for like 6 years. And like from the time I started the business to like 6-7 years in, our water was great. Like you can keep almost anything in it and it does well. Then all of a sudden our city is like, oh, our pipes are getting old. We're going to start replacing them. When they replace pipes, they have to recalcify the lines so that like a low pH wouldn't like eat away at it. Like if it has the calcium barrier, then it's kind of fine. You can put low pH in there. It really won't mess with it. But like a low pH eats away at the pipes. And so now all of a sudden we went from having like 7.2 pH, a GH that is wonderful, a KH that is wonderful, TDS is great. And then all of a sudden our pH is 8.9. Like you can't keep anything alive in that. So now we're investing into like, we need a vinegar dosing system to lower our pH. Like now we're dealing with like all this buildup of vinegar in our lines. Like it's literally a nightmare. It's way easier to go about it a different way. Like even if you have well water, you're like, oh, my water is so consistent. I get it from the ground. Well, like you get a really rainy season and you have like some fields around you. All of a sudden they're putting pesticides on those fields. Somehow it gets into your water. It doesn't really affect you, but it kills all your animals. Like it's just, there's so much variation that if I just had like a couple tanks, I would for sure do RO or DI water only. So like, that's what I recommend, just because like RO water, distilled water, what it does is it strips everything out of it. It just makes it pure water. And then you take that pure water and you add in remineralizer, like GH remineralizer, KH remineralizer, and then you can build the exact parameters that you want for any type of animal that you want to keep. Like you can do saltwater, you can do freshwater, you can do discus, you can do Caridina shrimp. It makes life so easy. And distilled water at the store is like $1 per gallon. Now I don't know, with inflation, might be a little different now, but like it used to be like a solid $1 per gallon. And so that's what I would recommend. And if you do go the route of like distilled water or getting RO water from like a pet store, invest in a TDS pen. TDS it's not a good measurement by itself, but like RO water, distilled water should have a TDS of 10 or less. So if you go and you buy distilled water and it has a TDS of like 50, that's not good water. I certainly would not use that. So like knowing that, that's how you can determine whether it's good water to use or not. Next thing to know is like shrimp are almost what I consider a negative bioload. So like if you have a cycled aquarium, which means you have nitrifying bacteria, and that's like bacteria that processes fish poop and makes it non-lethal. If you have that, and that's why we all have filters and stuff like that. If you have a nice cycled tank, you take all the animals out of it, you put 10 shrimp in there, odds are the nitrifying bacteria is going to die because shrimp don't produce much waste. And then what's going to happen, these shrimp are going to do good. They're going to breed. All of a sudden, there's going to be 100 babies in there. You're going to have a tank of 120 shrimp. Now, all of a sudden, they're producing enough waste to make something happen. And then the tank crashes because the ammonia spiked, killed all the shrimp. And now you're like, oh my God, it was doing so great. What happened? 9 times out of 10, it's because you had a cycle tank, it uncycled itself, and then as it was recycling, everything died. So how do you prevent that? And this is where we're getting into cycling, which I talked about, earlier. If you use Maricin, it kills the cycle. These are things you could do to rebuild it back. We're not quite there, but I think it's the next slide. So for shrimp, the best thing you can do is increase your bioload. My favorite way to do that is snails. So we talked earlier about mystery snails. They're a big, gentle giant. Like, rarely does a mystery snail eat a shrimp. It will, and it can. It's just very, very, very unlikely. So those are great ones. The other ones are like Malaysian trumpet snails, pond snails, ram's horn snails. Now, when I say those last three, you're probably like, oh, those are pest snails. Like, they're overpopulated. I've never had a snail population overtake a shrimp population. What I have had is I've had like 10 shrimp, and then the snail population skyrockets, and then all of a sudden the shrimp population skyrockets, and then the snail population declines because the shrimp will outcompete the snails. And so it is a good like teeter-totter. If you're overfeeding, you're going to have more snails. If you're underfeeding, you're going to have less snails. So like it's a good gauge in like how you're doing as far as like how much you're feeding and how much things are eating. The other thing is if you want to do like some types of shrimp, micro rasboras for the most part are shrimp safe. That's like exclamation point, chili rasbora, mirror rasbora, spotted rasbora, things like that. So highly recommend if you want fish, do the micro rasboras. You could do like endlers and guppies. The only thing is they can eat baby shrimp. I'm not saying they will every time, but they definitely can. Now, as far as cycling a tank, like if you just use Maricin and you need to recycle your tank, or if you have a small shrimp population and as it's growing, you want to just be safe, you can dose this regularly. It's called Turbo Start. It's by Fritz. Fritz actually has a boost. I think it's like right there. They're really great people. I'm not sponsored by them, but like I really like them. They're good guys. And so this is a great product to use. The only thing with it is if you have a pH of 7 or less, it doesn't work. So if you have a soft water setup with a pH of 7 or less, it's not going to work. So if you're going for like the Neocaridina shrimp or the harder water shrimp, great product, highly recommend it. But if you're not, there's a product called Florinbacter 1. I don't think Brightwell's here, but the guy that runs the show is Adam, and he works for Brightwell. So you could always talk with him. You could talk with me. You could send me an email. I'm not saying it's the best product in the world, but I would say that it's something. It works. There's plenty of other products you could try. This is what we personally use. Now, I am sponsored by Brightwell, full transparency. Again, I like to be transparent. But they don't like pay me to talk about this. Like if I found a better product, I'd put it on here. This is just what we personally use. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but when you have a pH of less than 7, ammonia is non-lethal. So that means technically, if you have a low pH, you can kind of let the tank cycle itself. But I always like adding a bacteria in just to kind of speed the process along. You don't want to have like ammonia of like 12 parts per million, and then like maybe not, yeah, 12 parts per million, and then like then it probably is a problem. So like in low doses of ammonia, you're not going to really have issues. So that is what I do recommend for a low pH tank. Next thing, as far as feeding shrimp, less is always better. How many people here have seen a skinny shrimp? Exactly. It's like you just don't see it. So like if you're putting a piece of food in there and the shrimp are attacking it and going crazy, then you probably need to feed more. If you're putting a piece of food in there and no one really comes around, no one's really interested, you probably need to feed less. And it's one of those juggling acts. Like if shrimp went a week without food, they're fine. They went a month without food, probably not great, but like most of the time they'd probably be able to scavenge for food, eat algae, stuff like that. And so it's a nice balancing act. If they're attacking it, feed more. If they're not attacking it, feed less, and find the good middle ground for you. Now, as far as types of food, I think the worst thing you can do is fall in the trap of like, oh, here's this new best food, and here's this one, I need to get that one. Next thing you know, you have 15 bags of shrimp food that each bag would last you a year. Now, like 3 years in, you throw half of it away. And so like, if you're doing something right now and it works, keep doing it. The two types of food that I would highly recommend would be the ones that are pictured. Bacterial AE is a product that I've used since I started in the hobby. And it's just like basically ground up biofilm, which is a natural food source for shrimp. If you've ever seen like a piece of wood and you put it in your tank and it almost molds, that mold is biofilm. It's basically like sugar excreting from the wood and then bacteria forming to eat that sugar. And so like biofilm is really good for them. And so I love using that. Just don't overdose it, because if you put too much on the top of the water, it could deplete the oxygen or like cut off the oxygen exchange, and then you could suffocate your shrimp. But like I personally have never had it happen. I've just heard that it could happen. And then snowflake food is like soybean husks, and it won't pollute your water. So like if you put if you're going away for a week, you could throw 2 or 3 of those in there, leave for a week, and it could sit in there. It's not going to pollute the water, and they can just eat on it as they're hungry. So those two foods are really good. The other ones I recommend, Northfin. I love Northfin. I have a really good relationship with them. I feed it to all of our fish, and then we feed it to most of our shrimp, mainly the Neocaridina. Actually, no, mainly Neocaridina. And then what we do is we take veggie, kelp, bug pro, and community, and we put it into a coffee grinder or something similar, grind it into a powder, and then we feed it that way. And then if you're looking for like higher end food for like Caridina shrimp, we use Shrimp Envy, which they're here somewhere. It's Rob and Ree. They're super nice people. They're really, really great. It's all homemade food. And so it has a shorter shelf life, but like the quality of it is just really good. Like they just make it, and they're just amazing people. So I love supporting them. So Shrimp Envy, there's 3 different types of food that I would recommend. Complete food, that's for every day. A mineral food, that's if you're having molting issues. So like if a shrimp is dying or not able to molt properly, I feed a mineral food. Or if you ever see a buried female die, like a female that has eggs, then I always feed a protein food. And usually when they die when they have eggs, it's because they're just breeding themselves to death, and they don't have enough protein to sustain their life. And so whenever I see a bunch of buried females, I always like try to feed a heavy protein food. Next, the more piece of, like if you have driftwood in your tank, it's going to provide a natural food source for them. They're going to graze on it. If you have Indian almond leaves or any type of leaf matter, that's going to produce a natural food source. Any type of botanical is usually good. It might lower the pH, so you got to be careful. You don't want the pH to drop too much. But if you have Caridina shrimp, it doesn't matter. You could definitely use it there. But I love just having natural food source in their tank. That's why like I always preach on Matten filters, because it just provides a whole wall of grazing. So the more surface area, the better. And just having those natural food sources in there. And then getting into like the decor in your tank, just a couple things to watch for. Rocks. What are rocks made out of? Minerals, right? And so minerals most of the time will leach into your water and change your parameters. So Dragonstone is one of the most popular aquascaping rocks. It's the one that has like all the little holes. Like it's the one in the behind the scenes picture, or like the background picture. It's made of clay. Clay really doesn't leach anything into your water. Like it's so for that reason alone, it's a really good rock to use. And with all the little holes, it creates tons of surface area. So like if you're going to add a rock, that's what I would recommend. Other than that, the way that you can tell if it's safe or not is if you take a rock that you want to use, you put it in a 5-gallon bucket or a 1-gallon bucket, put RO water in there, check the TDS, let's say it's 0, and then let it sit in there for a month or something. Test the water again and just see, like, is the TDS 20 now? Well, if it is, it's leaching something. Or like test the calcium, test the copper. Like there's tests that you can get to make sure that the rock is safe. Rarely do you have issues, but like Cerulean stone is like super full of minerals. So like a lot of times cerulean will raise the pH and stuff like that. So it's just something to be very aware of. Live plants. I like talking about this because I had this happen to me and it really, really sucked. Is live plants are great. Like you're going to be walking around. You're going to find so many good deals on live plants. You can stop by our booth if you want. I'm just kidding, but seriously. No, I am joking, but we do have some plants. The thing with live plants, if you're going to buy some this weekend, one of the things that you should be aware of is a lot of people just get the plants from the nursery and then resell them. Well, at nurseries, what do? They have bugs. So they walk through and they spray all their plants to kill the bugs. And like most of them do it, once a week, once a month, twice a week, whatever. And then if you get that pesticide into your tank, it's going to kill all your animals. And so like, usually, I'll get plants, I'll put them in our tank and then like, we'll run them through our filtration. And like, once they hit the water, usually it rinses it off and we're good to go. Well, I got some floating plants and I was like, oh, these are so cool. I'm going to grow them out of my personal tanks. Well, I throw them in my personal tanks. I didn't rinse them or anything. Come in the next day, and a colony that I had been breeding for like a year and a half all died. Like we had like 6 shrimp left. And I'm just like, man, that really sucks. And so I would highly encourage you, if you go home with plants today or ever buy plants in the future, rinse them off so good just to make sure you don't have any contaminants in your tank. If you have a quarantine tank, let them sit in your quarantine tank for like 3 or 4 days just to make sure. And then run some carbon on that tank and the hay on the back filter, and you'll be good to go. And you'll thank me because like it really sucks when that happens. Same thing with botanicals. Like some people literally go in their backyard and collect leaves, right? There's Indian almond trees in the United States and people will sell them on eBay and places like that. The thing is, there's a lot of areas that have like problems with, mosquitoes. And so like they'll literally drive over in a plane and just spray the whole area to kill mosquitoes. Well, like, how do you know if they didn't do that, right? How do you know what's in the air in your area? And so like now all of a sudden you get like something on your leaf that you collected out of your backyard that you're unsure of it and you throw it in your tank and it kills stuff. So like there's ways that you can boil the leaves. You can clean them really well and make sure they're safe. But like my thing is always go to a trusted source. Like if you're going to buy something, make sure you're going to a reputable source that has a track record that isn't just like some pop-up shop that came out of nowhere. I mean, if you know the people and you do your homework, like you can just, I like making people aware of it because it is scary. Like where we get our botanicals from, it's a guy that lives in the middle of the rainforest, collects them himself, sources them from some places, does all the quality control. And we've been working with him for like 8 years. So like, I trust him 100%. So just making sure that you're aware of it so that you can prevent it. The next thing is like the importance of a stable environment, especially with shrimp. We talked earlier about like importing and getting shrimp through the mail. Sudden changes definitely make a difference. And I am running out of time, so I might go quicker through these ones. Maybe I'll end in like 5 minutes and we can just do Q&A if I didn't answer a question already. But like sudden changes are bad, right? Any spike in parameters, pH, GH, KH, any drop, anything like that, shrimp are going to want to molt. And so like fish can tolerate a little bit more because like, it is what it is. Snails can go back in their shell and hide for a little bit. But like shrimp, their instant response is the molt. And so that's where you can start having issues. So like keeping your parameters as stable as possible is so important. Water changes, making sure that you do little water changes as frequently as you can so you're not doing massive water changes. The smaller the water change you do, the less you have to worry about the parameters. If you're doing larger ones, your parameters have to be spot on. You got to make sure your pH is pretty close. You want to make sure that the temperature of the water isn't too far off. So like my biggest advice is like small water changes more frequently. The biggest thing is like this, like deaths happen, right? they're living animals. They're going to die. So like the biggest thing is just don't stress out. Don't freak out. Don't rush. Don't make any sudden changes. Like as long as it's not like a continuous problem, like just take your time. Next thing is like new items. Whenever you add something new to your tank, you run the risk of something going wrong. So adding things as less frequently as possible is better. And then when you do add it, make sure you rinse it really good. Make sure you quarantine it. Just make sure to do your homework and don't rush it. Proper temperature is important. 68 to 72 is ideal for all freshwater shrimp. So a lot of people think they're tropical and they're not. 68 to 72. I don't think Florida has basements, but if you did have a basement, it's a perfect place to have a shrimp room. Heaters, short answer is I don't use them. Heaters do this thing where like it's up and down, up and down, up and down. And we just talked about like changes are bad for shrimp. So like as consistent as possible. So like I'd rather the tank be at 60 degrees than be at 72, but like heat up to 74, goes down to 70, heats up to 74 again. Like I'd much rather just stay at 60 degrees all year long because they're still going to breed. They're just going to slow down a lot. Water changes, I feel like we've talked about this enough. Slower the better. One thing that I could recommend is if you're going to do a water change, drain the water into whatever size container you want to use. Like if you want to do a 1 gallon water change, get a 1 gallon container, fill that container up, dump it out, fill that container back up with the water you're doing the water change with, set it on the rim of your tank right where the 2 glass panels come together, rest it right there, and then use an air line and just slowly pour it in. And then you can walk away. You can put an air stone at the end that will hold it down. And like, that's how you can do a really slow water change that isn't going to overflow your tank. Next up, tank size. Larger is always bigger in this sense. Like, and the reason I say that is like, they know what I'm going to say. So like, if I'm up here, like I just ate some Chipotle, right? My stomach might be gurgling, you know, had a lot of beans in there. You know, if like I'm up here and I have a little toot, like nobody would ever know. Seriously, you guys would have no idea. But like, if we all went and got in an elevator together and like crammed in there all like sardines, and then all of a sudden I do the same thing, you guys would be like, Rob, you're the worst person ever. Why would you do that to us? Right? And so it's the same thing in an aquarium. Like, if you have the largest tank possible and you make a mistake, nothing's going to happen. Like, you have to make a big mistake in a big tank for it to have an effect. But if you have a 1 gallon tank and you make a mistake, it's going to have huge consequences. So, bigger tank you could have, the better off you're going to be. Evaporation, if you're doing frequent water changes, you're going to be okay. But like, evaporation, it doesn't take minerals with it, right? It just takes straight RO water out. So if you're accounting for evaporation, do not add minerals back in it. Just do straight RO water, 0 TDS. Oh my God. We did it. That is the fastest I ever did that talk. I honestly didn't think it was possible. So thank you so much for being a great audience. I really appreciated it. And it was a lot of fun.